Welcome to the Immunity Community 2020, where our focus is to provide physical, mental, spiritual info and positive vibes to help you endure and adapt. We'll be bringing you experts to provide strategies to handle stress and boost your immunity. Welcome, everybody, to the Immunity Community 2020. I am very excited to bring with you Mr. Steve Suissa. We have been friends for, 20 years now, 18 years? This is insane.
I hate to admit that I'm not old, but yes.
Me too, man. I don't feel like it. Steve and I have been friends. We were first personally friends, and then we've done business together from a payroll perspective, an accounting perspective, bookkeeping perspective. I have a very, very high level of regard and respect for you as a not just a business person, but as a father and as a friend. So I'm really excited to have you on here to be able to give our community some financial advice or financial information, really what you've been going through as far as this whole shutdown and financial changes, actually. So Steve, tell me first about SHS and tell us a little bit about that so people have an idea of, what to look for and how we can find you and stuff like that.
Oh, and thank you for the opportunity. It's been a crazy couple of weeks out there in the market and trying to help folks. And so, as you know, I'm an accountant, and I left the tax world many years ago and really focused on payroll and bookkeeping. And our focus is on small and mid-sized businesses providing, affordable, service-oriented payroll processing compared to the large companies. And in terms of our bookkeeping service, it's really helping owners understand their financials. And really, nothing has become sort of more important over the last few weeks than payroll, the service level of providing the information and reports based on the CARES Act and what's come out, as well as all of the loans and the funding sources that have come out, the grants and the loans. So we've been extremely busy. Most of it just helping, to be honest, just really helping clients and even non-clients just work through a lot of this process. So we're a Rockville-based company. We've always been in the Rockville area. Our clients, though, are national. So most of our clients are located, obviously, in the DC, Maryland, Virginia, up to North Carolina area. But they have employees throughout the U.S., so we handle payroll and bookkeeping really throughout the entire U.S.
Awesome. And I learned very quickly as a business owner, CEO, that numbers and the stats and keeping accounts payable in order and profit and loss statements and cash basis, all those terms that I skipped those classes because I was studying anatomy and physiology in college. And so I quickly engaged with you early in my career. And it was extremely helpful to just get a very quick education and have someone to talk at a high level. So I look at like what you do as almost a, for lack of a better term, like a fractional CFO, so like a chief financial officer or an outsourced chief financial officer, bookkeeper, and then the payroll services are their own thing. So what's been the most challenging for the business owners that you're working with right now during this time?
So it's been interesting. There's been a lot of, they passed the CARES Act very quickly. And the CARES Act really only covered, I would say, a little bit of what is out there. If you look at the EIDL loans, right, the economic injury disaster loans that came out through the SBA, that was one part of it. There was confusion around the 10K advance or loan or grant, however people want to look at that. There was the Paycheck Protection Program that came out as well. That was an SBA program administered by the banks. There were Maryland IT grants, Maryland business loans, and Maryland grants in general. Then Montgomery County came out as well with their own grants to help small businesses. So, and that's just the ones that have come out recently. Maryland, even if you look at the Maryland website, there are grants that have existed for years that are cybersecurity or job employment or location-based grants as well. And so over the last few weeks, we really have just been inundated with helping our clients understand what, step one is get them to apply, get them the information they need to be able to apply, right? A lot of folks were thinking about, well, what happens when I get it? And our response has been, why don't you focus on getting it first, right? And don't think about the what ifs. And we actually have seen the clients that acted on it and applied. Some of them already started getting the funding, whereas the clients who were not prepared and who didn't get the financials in order and didn't request the payroll reports really missed out on the boat because it closed. The window closed, the opportunity closed.
Have you actually gotten new clients during this time? Like, do people enlist you to say, Steve, I can't figure this out. Can you help? have you gotten new clients during this time period?
Well, our priority is helping our existing clients. That's been our priority. We have gotten new clients that have called us and have asked for help, and we have actually helped them as well. Whether that turns into new clients permanently or whether it's a temporary request for help, that is a wait and see. But absolutely, on the payroll side, we have grown. A lot of our clients now have realized that they were not getting the information and the tools needed, the understanding, using the larger companies. They were calling their sales rep. They were calling the 1-800 number, and they were not getting accurate information on how and what was needed in order to apply for a lot of these programs. And CPAs were extremely busy during this time too, because even though there's an tax returns, people are still trying to get their tax returns done and take advantage of the extension of the payment. You still have to file, but there's on payments. So we have grown our payroll business as a result of this in terms of number of clients. Obviously, we've had clients who have had to shut down and not have any payroll during this period. But fortunately, the majority of those have gotten the Paycheck Protection Program approval and funds and are starting to rerun payroll for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, it's amazing, man, just to see, because both of us were in business in 2008 and people are comparing this, but it's not the same, not even close, because and what I'm really surprised and proud and happy to be in America, to have the support that we've gotten through state, local, and federal government has been absolutely amazing. So we've talked about like business owners, obviously from that level. What's really cool, those of you listening and tuning in here, Steve is unique in the fact many accountants, I love every accountant I've dealt with, so I apologize in advance for this statement, but I don't speak the same language as them. You and I have always been able to speak the language of business. Like you're an accountant, but you don't speak accountese. You do. You're fluent in both. so because you're business owner yourself. Yes. Yeah. As far as I'm sure there are other languages in there as well. So those of you listening and tuning in, it's really important when you're finding someone to work with in this arena that you have a good relationship with. And that's why we've been able to work well in the past together. So I think this is a good time to pivot. Can you speak to potentially people who are employees, because I want to take it into down the funnel to people who are maybe having problems. Like, can you talk a little bit about potentially like if paid time off, sick leave, if any of that, like any insight on that for people who are employees of companies?
Absolutely. In fact, it's dramatically changed because of the CARES Act as well. So what's happened is, as a result of the CARES Act, is that FMLA, which, as you know, is typically over 50 employees, has actually gone down now to really almost any business owner. And
so FMLA, people, for those of you, it's the Family Medical Leave. Yep. Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
And so essentially what's happened is businesses really that have retained their employees that have basically met certain criteria, whether they're shut down due to COVID, whether an employee has a child whose daycare is closed as of this whole pandemic or forced to close because of this pandemic, you essentially, other than terminating this employee, they need to be paid their PTO their 2 weeks of time off, and then you need to basically keep them on salary for the next 10 weeks at 2/3 pay. And so this has dramatically changed sort of not only the protection for the employees, but has also changed the mindset of employers. I mean, if you have to pay as a small business owner, if you have to pay employees of your business, let's say all of them, for 2 weeks and then 10 weeks at 2/3 pay, can you afford to stay open? And that was one of the dilemmas that a lot of clients were calling us and asking us about.
It's a balancing act, and it's thank you for like you're bringing so much clarity to it. I know you're super sharp with this stuff, and have stayed on top of it, because it's like you hear one thing, you get another thing, you're reading this email, that email, it's really, really confusing. Super, super helpful. And we could dive really deep into this, but for those of you who are confused, we'll tie in all the socials, and you can reach Steve and ask him direct questions, or his team questions about this type of stuff. And just a quick note to mention, and this is it's a good way for us to spin, because I find it very important to actually check in with people's emotions, because you and I, like, we're good at this level of like, okay, let's just do, like, focus on the numbers and all that stuff. But I know when we've had personal conversations, like about our kids or spouses and stuff, we get into it, which is cool. So, and that's a really important strategy for those people listening who are business owners, to really pay attention to what's going to happen with reentry. This whole landscape of employer, employee, and feeling safe, and people were traumatized. So generally, well, I've got a lot more interviews that we're and working on to handle the mental stuff. That's not necessarily our gig. I'm throwing it out there. So last question is really, what have you had to do or who have you had to become as a father, as a husband, as a business owner? Not just the guy who crunches the numbers, but like, what have you had to shift or deal with on the inside? Because I want to touch base, because it's important. You're human. I know you're not just a robot.
It's a very interesting question. And people typically think of accountants as really non-emotional. But one of the greatest concerns really that I've had is the impact to my employees. I mean, obviously my family is homebound. We're still considered an essential business. So, I'm still going to the office. And we've instituted telework to keep most people safe. But, the exposure for my family really is I'm still out there. And so there's a mental component to that. Whereas if you get that the rest of the family's been locked up at home with no exposure to anybody, which is stressful in itself. When you have teenagers and friends and they can't see them, that's pretty stressful.
There's a whole genre of I feel for my teenagers, because they're going bonkers and taking it out on me. And it's been a challenge. We could talk about that in another interview. Is there anything you can leave our audience with, like just some quick financial tips or ways to
absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
And let me say, in terms of the emotional aspect, which I know is extremely important, especially in the medical field, you need to be honest and open with your employees, but be optimistic, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody needs any more bad news. Nobody needs any more negative. So to your employees, they don't need to know the world is ending. They don't need to know the company's going through a hard time. You're in the same boat as they are. They need positive feedback. They need positive energy. And that, I think, is extremely important as an owner. It's your responsibility as an owner to really not carry your stress to them. The priority for us right now is just helping as many people as we can. It's changed us in the sense that, we've shifted to, we used to, and we have, as helped many people as often as possible. It's now become to a point where we've gone on public forums like this and explained what a lot of the new rules and regulations are, which people didn't know. And I think that's been a big shift, and I've enjoyed helping more people.
Awesome. And well, I want to thank you for being who you are and being a pillar in the community, and I appreciate you as a friend and a business colleague. And I wish you and your family the best. And then, keeping those neurons sharp for your brain to help all the other business owners and employees out there. So thank
Well,
you very much.
likewise, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always great chatting with you, even if it's not live, person to person.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll have to.
Over.
Yeah, when it blows over, we'll grab coffee for sure, man.
Definitely.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Steve.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Mm-hmm.